and welcome to the Immigrant-Origin Executive Brief. My name is Samantha Huang. I did my undergrad at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and now I am a first-year HESA student. My assistantship is currently in Residential Programs and Services as a graduate supervisor for Foster Quadrangle.
Hello, my name is Ringtae. I'm currently a first-year student in the Higher Education and Student Affairs program. My assistantship is in Residential Programs and Services, a grad supervisor at Forest Quad. I went to Indiana University for my undergraduate.
Starting with an overview of our student population, there are over 5.3 million immigrants enrolled in higher education in the US, and a large portion of that are second and third generation students. However, 8.6 are first generation immigrants, which is the focus of our brief. Indiana has some of the lowest enrollment of immigrant origin, holding about 7% of the 28%. So that's about 24,000 immigrant origin students in Indiana, and about 7,000 of those are first generation. In comparison, California has some of the highest sharings, with about 50% of the immigrant origin students in the US. Most immigrants tend to attend public institutions, they're private by a very small margin, so both institution types should be considered. And then Indiana is classified as a limited to DACA state in terms of inclusive in-state tuition and state financial aid policies for undocumented students, meaning there is some aid for undocumented students, but the eligibility pool is relatively small.
Some of the key terms for our population include immigrant origin, immigrant, undocumented students, and deferred action for childhood arrival, which is also known as DACA. Immigrant is defined as a person who enters a country to take up permanent residence, whereas immigrant origin comprises of students who are first and second generation immigrants. Undocumented students are individuals without legal documentation, a heterogeneous community comprised of a broad range of first generation immigrants in the United States. First generation immigrants is a person with no US citizenship at birth, but could be naturalized through naturalization. Deferred action for childhood arrival, DACA, also known as DACA, is a policy protecting young undocumented individuals from deportations and allowing them to work legally in the United States. And second generations are children of immigrants.
In terms of diversity within the population, these graphs represent some of the variations in race and documentation status of the first-gen immigrant origin student population. Latine make up a significant portion of the first-generation immigrants. Most immigrant origin students are documented, with only a small portion of undocumented immigrants being DACA eligible.
Three historical backgrounds we want to highlight to give brief insights of what's happening within our population. First one is Plyer versus Doe in a 1982 Supreme case, which permit undocumented students to enroll in K-12 education. However, it does not guarantee the right to education beyond high school. Another thing is Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act, which limit them from receiving financial aid. So a student who may try to pursue higher education, and if they are undocumented, they are limited from receiving financial aid. The restriction placed on legal immigration by the Trump administration have reduced the inflow of immigrants and refugees into the country since 2017, particularly during 2020 as a result of the pandemic.
In addition to some of the challenges just mentioned, there are a couple issues of development that we'd like to highlight for this student population. The age of immigration can impact educational attainment, as exposure to American society and English language at a young age allows individuals to navigate social and educational opportunities. Many immigrant students are also of low income status and have to support their families through unstable employment, which can make it difficult to not only stay in school, but then also to prioritize academic and extracurricular opportunities that are often core to the holistic student. This is further exacerbated for undocumented immigrants who are often unable to receive financial aid. Additionally, family can be both a barrier and a key factor for overcoming challenges. Families of immigrant students are generally supportive of their education, and family is often the main source of emotional and financial support, as well as aspirational and resistant capital. However, differences in cultural expectations between life at home and school, as well as gender and generational roles in different environments, can create tensions within families and society. Additionally, political and historical relationships between the US and nation states may positively and negatively shape the immigrant student experience, as immigrant origin students may often feel alienated by the emphasis on democratic ideology of citizenship and civic engagement that they themselves might not hold in higher education and in the US, given the changes to their national identity and other allegiances.
Issues of development can also negatively impact collegiate experience for immigrant population. Some barriers and challenges associated with immigrant identification include prejudice, the lack of cultural relevancy in the campus environment, and their lack of self-esteem that attributed with their college experience, which can negatively impact their academic performances and invalidation of their cultural value in a dominant university setting. The lack of cultural relevancy and targeted effort from campus counseling services to serve immigrant students undermine their college experience, which makes it difficult to connect with their peers on campus, also tie into their self-esteem where they feel inadequate about their own experiences in comparison to peers outside of the immigration status.
With all of these challenges in mind, we should consider what higher education should do and can do for immigrant origin students. Financially, by allowing and encouraging undocumented students to pay in-state tuition and allowing them to apply for in-state financial aid, that would be a favorable policy that sends signals to undocumented youth about their future educational possibilities. And more public awareness for these policies are needed for undocumented families to understand what they're eligible for. Additionally, states with larger immigrant population networks should consider how these larger networks have the possible negative effect of increased competition for admissions to higher education. And to address that, institutions should consider how to make the admission process more equitable for these families who are unfamiliar with the process. Additionally, states with smaller networks but maybe more favorable educational policies should consider increasing the public awareness of those policies and continue advocating even when those student populations might not be as high as states with larger networks. There's also a rising demand for higher skilled workers, and while many states have set goals to increase the number of residents with that post-secondary credential, not all are considering how immigrant origin adults play a significant role in local economies and that more should be considered for their education. And to provide more equitable access to higher education, consideration should be made about the removal of limitations set by the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act, as well as the Legal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, and also other immigration policies.
Two strategies has been effective in supporting immigrant students, which is mentorship and cultural competency. Implementing a mentorship program has been proven effective in building a relationship and helping students feel validated and connected to the institution. Students are connected through common drive for academic aspirations and learning from cultural differences, which is an important aspect of validation. Another one is cultural competency from the advisors and student affairs, the ability to validate and appreciate the values and experiences of immigrant students. Working with this population take reflection of personal biases and supporting the unique experiences of immigrant population.
With all that said, we recommend that administrators, faculty, and student affairs professionals continue to stay up to date on immigration policy and trends in immigrant origin enrollment to support the immigrant origin students on their campuses. The Higher Ed Immigration Portal and the Migration Policy Institute are both great sources for national and state data on immigrant origin populations. And while we've given an overview of first-generation immigrant origin students broadly, we recommend further readings about specific ethnic immigration populations who may have different lived experiences in the US regarding their ethnicity, nationality, and documentation statuses. And for more information, you can check out our references and recommended resources page. Thank you.
Thank you.